Hi everyone and welcome for this second tutorial about the scenery, how to paint the scenery from Heroquest. So for this Heroquest project, as you know, I decided to cut the scenery in three different parts. The one who have a lot of wood, the one who have a lot of stone, and all the other one who will come next this tutorial. So I'm going to show you how to paint a lot of stone and how to create some different kind of effects on the different subject we are going to paint. I really hope you enjoy this tutorial. Don't hesitate to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and by the way, you can always support me every month on Patreon and you will have access to a little bit more tutorial to know how I use my paint, how I dilute and how I charge my brush to paint in the way you see during the tutorial. So let's go for the paint and I see you at the end. Let's go. So we are going to paint the stone and this door. We are going to use some dry brush effect by using first Scaven Blights dinge, and after we are going to add more and more white into this and focus on limited and limited surfaces step by step. I change a little bit my way to paint. I don't only directly push a wash on a white coat just because sometimes it's necessary. It's good things to change your mind and to change your way to paint, just to keep your motivation on. So I am going to take this gray. So as you can see, I just apply a dry brush. So I take paint, I remove my paint from my brush, and when I have just a few, I come and I push my color. If you see, I use a special Artist Opus Series D to create my dry brush because it's really more easy. It's simple like that, and that gives me the possibility to really apply my dry brush is the most easy way. As you can see, I don't have a lot of paint in my brush, and that's the best way to apply a dry brush. So I'm going to come back later and once again with just the same color with a little bit of white to pushing more and more my highlight everywhere I need. So some surfaces are not stone, but later I will come back and apply different kind of ink to push some different kind of color on my surfaces. Now I'm adding some white into my mix just to have one more highlight. Remember that after we will come back with some ink, and that's going to remove a lot the contrast. So don't worry if you have too much contrast. You can always remember that we will come back later with more ink. So that's going to remove a lot the contrast, so you can push it and don't worry about that. We will come back later and that's going to do something really more smooth. So this time I'm adding more and more whites to pushing my highlights by dry brushing. Remember, I just apply a lot on the up part and try to preserve the down part, just to show that the light come from up. So after my paint with gray was totally dry, I come back with some white, and again I apply a dry brush on limited surfaces, the up part, and I'm going to do that on all the stone parts of my scenery. That's the interest is that's going to push more light on the different details and more light on the global surfaces. And after that, if we want, we can pushing some ink just to pushing a little bit more transition and more soft contrasts on this. Remember to remove a lot of your paint to be sure don't push too much white at this moment. But don't worry, the ink we are going to apply after will reduce a lot the contrast. So during the process now, I'm going to apply some runic gray on all the stone and a different kind of color depending on the surfaces I'm going to reach, just to create my different tone into my different scenery. That will be okay for a quick level 1, and that will work pretty well. As you can see, the ink is going to go into the recesses, but by the way that's going to stay a little bit on all our highlight part, and in that way that's going to create more and more soft transition between my different color. Mixing ink and dry brush is a very efficient way to paint. So now with some zealot yellow, I'm going to apply on all the non-metallic metal part, for example in gold, than I want. And I'm going to do the same once again, for example, on the flame of this. So, by the way, during the process I'm going to add just a few red, not on the base but at the end of this flame. As you can see, I just tap my red, and naturally, normally, it's going to create some transition between my yellow and my red to create my flame effects. I'm going to continue with some hardened leather, again from Army Painter, and pushing this on all the wood part. So I'm going to apply some palette bone from Speed Paint again on the tissue we have here and the bone. So with my Gravelord Grey, I'm going to apply on all the metallic part, so that's going to create some distinction between my stone, who have a more blue tone inside, and my metallic, who will be more black, more neutral than the rest. For this level 2, we are going to start by applying some highlight, but not by dry brushing now, but by pushing our highlights just by mixing some of our white and some few of our previous color. If you have neutral gray, for example, something simple, you can use it directly and push your highlights everywhere. So you don't have to make any kind of mix, and you can directly apply that on all the different more highlighted surfaces. During the previous video, I show you during the first scenery video for Heroquest, I show you how to highlight the wood and how to highlight the yellow, the non-metallic metal yellow gold. So you can refer to that to apply on that surfaces. I'm not going to show you that again, just because I already show you in the previous tutorial. By the way, I show you on these surfaces because it's always some stone, but what is pretty interesting on this kind of surfaces is that there are lots of details, and by using my gray, I'm going to try to push these details in front of our eyes, and not necessarily during this process to push from level 1, so ready to play, to a level 2. I want something we are going to give more life to the sculpture and to all the different kind of details. That's why I show you, because it's always stone, so it's exactly the same than on the door in stone, but I want to show you on these kind of surfaces with more details, so you can see that's pretty important to show to people the different details we can find on these surfaces. So as you can see, you can always come back just with some few white to pushing again your highlight on some stone, but I'm going to push just one layer, no more, because it's going to be some stone effect. But if I push too much layer of white, it's going to have more a non-metallic metal effect. So I need some white, but with time it's going to be not necessarily so white and more like a light gray, so it's really enough to have this kind of stone effect. So now I'm going to apply some Scaly Green from Prince August Games. I apply a very diluted color just to give more life to the elements we can see right here. This is some kind of vegetation we can see on this kind of door, and that's going to push more life again to our miniatures and our scenery, and that's always welcome. And we can play with this layer, very diluted layer, to apply on different surfaces like that, just to show there are some life into this stone. So I'm going to do the same on the tomb, just because I think it's this kind of element. And by the way, that's push more life, so even if in real the sculpture wants to show us some tissue, I really prefer to pushing some vegetation just to give more life all around this tomb. If you prefer to have some tissue effects, you just have to let the tone totally gray. That's work pretty well. So now I just push a little bit more highlight on these little things. Not necessarily everywhere, but just on some few points. That will be enough. Don't need necessarily to dilute a lot at this moment. Just have to try to apply with precaution only on some surfaces, we're going to take some more light. So I come back on all the small tissue you can see with some skeleton horde, just to pushing more highlight. Just for you to remember, I already show on the previous video about the first video about the scenery for Heroquest. I already show how to paint the wood and how to paint some non-metallic metal. So I'm going to give you can directly see this tutorial to see how I do that step, and we can focus on all the other things. The skeleton give me the possibility to pushing some highlight on the tissue, on the bone I see, for example. And by the way, on the canvas we can see on this scenery. For the level 3, I will show you how to create a simple freehand into this canvas. So we are going to apply some yellow just to boost a little bit the flame we have into this part. So we are going to apply some Evilson's red at the end of the flame and pushing after we apply with a more diluted color to create some few transitions. By the way, we can always come back with just some few orange just between the two different colors if you want something with more transition. And with some few black color, we are going to come back just at the end of the different flame to create more contrast. So just with some few red very diluted, we come back and we apply on the side just to show the reflection of light on all these surfaces. And we can do the same on the wood. Just have to apply very diluted color. Just to finish, I'm going to come back with some orange just because I really want better transition right here. So let's go for the level up to the next level 3. So for that we are going to use a lot our airbrush, just because it's going to help us to push more global light and shadow, and by the way that's going to clean up a lot the different elements of my door. So the first step will be to use some green skin with my airbrush on all the different green surfaces. I do that first because after I come back with some white to push highlight on all my stone part, and that's going to cover a little bit the green I am actually applying. So I use this step on all the different scenery I paint, just to gain some time during this process. Now I am going to come back with some pure red from Army Painter here, and I'm going to pushing more red to have a more strong other source lighting from the fire right here. It's always the same between two different colors. I clean up my airbrush by using some airbrush cleaner from Green Stuff World. And then when it's totally clean, I'm going to come back with some demonic yellow from Army Painter hair color to pushing more highlight into the source of my fire. So now I'm going to come back with some laser brown from Army Painter hair to pushing again my highlight. During the process I see that the color is a little bit too dark for my highlight, so I'm going to adding just some few white into my airbrush to create a better highlight. By the way, I'm going to clean up a little bit the canvas. So now I'm going to apply some white with my airbrush with some Army Painter hair white, and for that I'm going to apply on all the stone. I not necessarily need to find a very strong white, but layer after layer it's going to give more light to the stone. So remember, when you apply your airbrush with white, in fact you don't need to erase everything you do before, but you need to be sure that your actual layer is going to push all the different mistake you do before in the second plan, so this mistake can start to be directly some texture. So now we are going to come back just a few with our brush and pushing some mood green on all the different surfaces who are green. So now I'm going to apply that on all the green part, but a lot, and a lot on just some few parts who are going to take the more light. And you don't necessarily need to make that everywhere. That just to push more light on some few surfaces to show that green part. Remember to use a lot the side of your brush to push your color in the direction you want, by using the volume due to the sculpture. And depending on what intensity you want, you can push 2 layers and reduce the surfaces you reach to have a more and more strong highlight. And now with my brush I come back on the stone and pushing just a few highlights again, because the layer when I apply my airbrush is global, so I need to redefine just a few some stone, and by the way the up part of each big stone of the structure of the door. So we are going to come back with some yellow gold from Prince Auguste on the flame, on the light, and on the non-metallic metal, just to boost again a few highlight, to have something more strong and more intense into some few surfaces. Remember, Airbrush is going to give you the possibility to have very nice transition and smooth degradé, but for all the intensity of light, you always need to come back with your brush just to push your highlights everywhere you want. By the way, I create some reflection on the wood, by the way, that's worked pretty well. And we are going to come back with some few white, just with some few points, just to show where come from this very strong source of light, and that come from this. So I come back on all the non-metallic in gold with some yellow gold from Prince Auguste, just to pushing again my highlight and my intensity, because when I come with my airbrush, I'm going to reduce this intensity to have something more smooth, so that's going to give me the intensity I need to have some nice non-metallic metal. And I'm going to do the same with some few points of white. So now I come back on the wood, and in the same way, with a very diluted color, I'm pushing some few white color to have more strong contrasts into the different edges of the wood. As you can see, I don't apply on all the surfaces, just on the surfaces would take some more light. So as you can see, with a very diluted sienna color, I come back with some juice directly. So this layer is very diluted, and I apply on all the side of the door, just to have few more contrasts. And by the way, on the very thin recesses, during the process, I can add some few of this into the non-metallic metal part, just to show that's going to create some rust effects and make a clear distinction between my non-metallic metal, who are going to be more contrasted, and my stone effect, who are more into some blue and green layer and some few parts. So that creates some clear distinction between both of them. So I come back with a mix between flat earth and white, just pushing just a few shadow into the tissue. So I just had some few white to pushing, just a few, my highlights. I'm going to add some few black on the side, just to create a distinction and something more clean. I'm going to mix just a few sienna color and black, and with this color very diluted I'm going to try to create some freehand. And now we come back with some few white to redefine some few surfaces. So I come back once again with some few black to redefine again. So I'm going to push this special effect Valero environment just on the stone on some few parts again, just to continue to mix the different effects between my the grass and the stone, and that's perfect way to create a link between, for example, the wood, the few one, and the stone. And as you can see, I just tap my color. And remember to preserve your more strong highlights and push this more into the shadow or the middle light. So to finish, I'm going to apply some Tamiya X27 just to create some blood, some kind of blood effects on this torture machine. directly with some few and simple point like that. So I'm going to add just a few blocks into my mix to create a more dry blood on some few parts, and by the way, in the middle of my different So it's done. I really hope you enjoy this tutorial, a lot of stone, and I really enjoy doing the last step to giving more life again to our scenery. The Heroquest project is near to be finished because I already paint big part of the miniatures. The next time I will show you the last few decors I have to paint, and after that we have the hero and at least the two last boss of the game, and that will be finished for this project. I really hope you enjoy again and see you soon for the next tutorial, guys. Bye bye.